Welcome to the daily news analysis session at Narana's Academy. We're going to deal with most important articles from The Hindu and Indian Express as part of this DNA. And all these articles are highly relevant and very important for your upcoming examination. So we'll be covering them very comprehensively. Now before we start, I have a quote for you. Do not use your energy to worry. Spend your energy on things that will improve your life. Now, most of the people, 90% of the people, what they will be doing, they'll keep on thinking about their future. They'll keep on focusing more on those obstacles that they are facing, the challenges they are facing. And that's why they will remain in stress. And here, all their energy will be spent on worrying, on that stress part. Now, instead of putting your energy in worrying, if you put the same energy in working on yourself, in improving yourself, then your life will change. Then you will see success. Okay, so a good quote we can say. Now, before we start, the notification from Narana's Academy, wherein 1 year and 2 year courses are active, you can take admissions using the QR code given on the screen. All the details related to this program are given over here. Even on the website, you'll find all these details. The course structure, including 800 plus hours of general studies and CSAT classes, current affairs classes, the strategic micro schedule, faculties, testing, feedback, everything will be part of this program. Okay. Now moving ahead with our articles of the day. So I've chosen total 6 articles. The first article is from The Hindu, page number 8. It talks about India-U.S. trade agreement and test of WTO laws. So there is a plan of a new trade agreement between India and United States of America. And it is being said that this agreement, this trade agreement can go against World Trade Organization norms or rules. So this is something very important and we'll be discussing it in detail. The second article, looking for potent cosmic particle accelerator. Now this one is a very much technical kind of article, but we will deal with it in a very simplistic manner. So you will be understanding what is plasma, what is this solar wind coming up, what is the magnetosphere, and then we'll understand the recent discovery wherein we are looking at how electrons are getting energy in the space, very high energy. So we'll understand that. Third article, India's second largest arms importer after Ukraine, says SIPRI. And SIPRI report is considered to be one of the most authentic reports when it comes to arms import, arms trade. Okay, and it's a very important news item. So we'll study this. The fourth article, Lalit Modi's Vanuatu passport to be cancelled. So Lalit Modi is anyway very infamous person. But this Vanuatu is very important for us. Vanuatu is a country which is quite near to Australia. So we should know about this country specifically, and they are providing passport or citizenship to people who pay for them. So that part we'll understand here. Then fifth article is related to delimitation. So dangers of delimitation, very important. And last article is related to obesity crisis. Now these two are those articles which we have already covered in our earlier daily news analysis, delimitation as well as obesity laws. Okay, so let's start with our first article of the day, which is related to India-US trade agreement. Now here you need to know what is FTA, free trade agreement, what is bilateral trade agreement, what is this WTO, what is its role, how it functions, everything. And this article is important for your prelims as well as mains. Now if you read this previous year question, what are the key areas of reform if WTO has to survive in the present context of trade war, especially keeping in mind the interest of India? So somewhere the discussion is going on whether WTO is going to remain relevant or not. If there is an institution in the form of WTO which has made some rules for international trade. So when countries are going for any trade, there are some rules Those rules are given by WTO and every country accepts those rules, follows those rules. But suddenly, if some countries they say that we are not going to accept WTO rules, we'll do whatever we want to. So can this body actually survive? So right now we are in the era of trade war, especially when we saw that Donald Trump has got elected again as US president, and who is heading this policy of going towards trade war. So somewhere WTO is being questioned. Now, what's happening right now? So in the February month, February 13, 2025, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited United States of America. And there, India and United States both decided that they are going to negotiate a trade agreement. And this trade agreement is called as bilateral trade agreement. In short, we can call it BTA. Okay, bilateral trade agreement. So the plan was to finalize this agreement by the end of 2025. And this agreement is expected to improve trade relations between both US and India. But right now, many experts are studying this part. They are analyzing this deal, which is still in a proposal stage, which is yet to be concretized. But they are analyzing whether this deal would follow WTO norms or not. So the question is whether this BTA will follow World Trade Organization rules, or it will completely go against it and violate the rules made by WTO. This is being questioned, or this is being thought about right now. So, first of all, to understand this trade agreement completely, we need to understand some basic or key concepts related to international trade and WTO. Okay, so when you're trying to understand international trade, what happens in international trade? Countries will buy and sell goods, services to each other. Okay, simply this is what we call as international trade. But what happens in practical terms is countries will try to protect their own industries. And to protect own industries or domestic industries, countries will often put some restrictions on the trade. So let's say India and USA are going for a trade. India would want that our industries should be protected. America wants their industries should be protected. So both might come up with some restrictions in the trade. It is not like the trade will go on just like it is happening in your own country. So when two different countries are having trade, there can be some kinds of barriers in the trade. It will not be a free flow of goods and services. Now, when we talk about such barriers, we categorize them into two. One is called as tariff barrier, another one is called as non-tariff barrier. Now, we should know what do we mean by these barriers simply. Tariff, when we say tariff, it is nothing but a tax. So let's say India is importing something from America, or India is exporting something to America. So while importing or exporting, if a country is putting some tax on those goods, then that tax is called as tariff. Now, obviously, the main reason for these tariffs is to protect the domestic industries from the foreign competition. For example, say if India puts high tariffs on foreign cars, or let's say Harley Davidson coming from USA. So when they're putting high tariff on those bikes or those cars, then their price will increase. So very few people will buy those imported cars, and more people will buy the cars or vehicles made in India. So Indian producers, Indian manufacturers, they will get benefit out of this and they will grow. Okay, so for this reason, we have put this kind of a tariff barrier. Obviously, America would not like it. Okay, but there is one more barrier which is called as non-tariff barrier. So you're not putting any specific tax as such, but there is a barrier which is not allowing the trade to take place in a free manner. So besides tariff, so countries will be using other methods. Let's say they want to control a particular trade. So what will they do? they might say we have a quota system. That means a limit on how much of a product can be imported. So you are importing, let's say, a, a specific bike, let's say Harley Davidson bike, you are buying from America. Indian government will say there is a limit. You cannot import more than 10,000 bikes. That's the limit they have set. So this is a kind of quota. Okay. So this is a non-tariff barrier. Okay. Then second example could be licensing requirements. So for some products which need special permissions, we call them licensed products. So government of India may say to buy a particular product, you might need license from government. You take the license, then will allow you to buy it from other countries. But taking license in itself is a tedious process. So somewhere you're putting barrier. Then the third thing is sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Very interesting. Sanitary and phytosanitary. So these are those rules which protect the health and safety of the people of that country. For example, a country may ban the import of fruits which are being exported by India because they feel that there are some pests or there can be some kind of disease which may affect the health of people in their country. So when it comes to health and all, everyone becomes conscious. So let's say European countries might say, will not take this particular product from India because it might lead to some diseases, health might be affected. So this is also some kind of non-tariff barrier. So overall, these measures, they control the trade, and these measures protect domestic industries from the competition they are going to get from foreign countries. Okay, so this is the basic part. Now we want to know what is the difference between free trade agreement and bilateral trade agreement. Reason being, right now we are planning bilateral trade agreement with United States of America. So you should know the difference specifically. So you see, countries can enter trade agreements to reduce these trade barriers. So already trade barriers are present. So countries might feel that we should remove that or reduce that, and we should have more economic cooperation. US might feel that India should remove some trade barriers. India might feel the same. So to engage in economic cooperation, they go for such trade agreements. Okay. Now, these are the two major types or common types of agreements: free trade agreement and bilateral trade agreement. Now, if I talk about free trade agreement, it's a deal. It's a normal deal between two or maybe more than two countries where both the sides agree that they're going to reduce or remove trade barriers like the tariffs, like the quotas. So those could be tariff barriers or non-tariff barriers, but we are going to reduce or remove. Both parties are ready for that. And these FTAs cover most or all goods and services between these countries involved. So it's not like only one particular product or other particular service. For this, there is no FTA. The FTA would involve almost all of the goods and services. Almost all. It's not like exactly all 100%, but 80%, 90% you can say. So, for example, India has a free trade agreement with ASEAN countries. ASEAN, you all know, a group of countries from the Southeast Asian region. So, when we have this FTA, we can say that the trade will be carried out in a very free manner, and there will be very low tariff or almost zero tariff on many products. And obviously, not every country will agree for such kind of an FTA, free trade agreement. So whenever FTA agreement or negotiation for FTA agreements are going on, they take many years because they are covering a very wide range of products and services. So many products are involved, so many concerns are involved. So that's why it takes a lot of time. And as far as the legal aspect is concerned, so free trade agreement is allowed under WTO rules. So if I have to be very specific, article article 24 article 24 of GATT and GATS under WTO rules, this allows countries to go for free trade agreements. Okay, So this is free trade agreement. Now we want to compare free trade agreement with the bilateral trade agreement. Now what is BTA or bilateral trade agreement? Again, it's an agreement between two or more countries. But usually because the term bilateral is coming up, then we say simply it is between two countries. Okay, so remove that part where many countries are involved. Many countries may go for it, but in a bilateral manner. So bilateral trade agreement, it's a trade deal between two countries, and here it's not like all the goods, all the services are involved. Rather, it focuses on specific products or specific industries, and it will not cover all the goods and all the services. So it's very different from free trade agreement. So when you talk about this BTA, bilateral trade agreement, it does not have to remove all the trade barriers on all the goods. No. Instead, it will only focus on selected products or selected sectors. And right now, the proposed India-USA BTA, it is expected to focus on few sectors like technology, pharmaceuticals, energy, and it is not going to focus on all goods and services. So please understand, when we go for FTA, we become very happy. But when we are going for BTA, we have to be very cautious right now. Okay, so we can call this BTA is a very limited kind of a trade deal, meaning it will be focusing on some industries, and this is different from FTA altogether. Now, what about the legality angle? So, we said free trade agreement is governed by WTO rules. But when it comes to BTA, we can say it's a less formally structured under WTO rules, and it has to comply with the MFN principle of WTO. MFN means most favored nation principle of WTO. If it complies with it, then it is fine. If it doesn't comply with it, then it's a problem because it is something illegal. It is something wherein you're going against WTO rules. So anyway, if countries want to go for this bilateral trade agreement, they can go for it, but they have to ensure that it complies with most favored nation principle of WTO. But the question that arises for us, what is this most favored nation status? But for that, you need to know what is World Trade Organization, WTO. So WTO is international organization that regulates the entire global trade. Okay, so if any country is going for trade with any other country, all this international trade, this will be regulated. See, at the world level, we do not have any world government. At national level, we have government. At state level, we have government. But at international level, we do not have. But we have tried to bring in some government kind of institutions to regulate all these things. WTO is one of them. It's an international organization to regulate global trade, and it was created in the year 1995. See, before WTO, there was another organization called GATT, and the GATT later on became WTO through this Marrakesh Agreement. Okay. Now, right now, if you see, WTO has total 166 member countries, and this WTO makes sure that trade between countries is fair and follows the rules. WTO makes some rules and it ensures that every country is following those rules. Every member country is following those rules. Okay. Now, if you see the structure of this WTO, it has different bodies which are going to manage trade disputes, agreements, etc. First important part of this WTO is the Ministerial Conference. Ministerial Conference is the highest decision making body, and this body meets every 2 years. Okay. Now below this you will get General Council, below this you will get different councils, Goods Council, Service Council, Intellectual Property Council, etc. Okay, and this General Council will meet as dispute settlement body and will meet as trade policy review body. Now this dispute settlement body, this is very important. It handles trade disputes between countries. So let's say America doesn't like a particular tax or tariff put by India on a particular product. So what America will do, they'll go to this dispute settlement body and they'll raise a complaint against India. Okay, now this body is simply like a courtroom. Obviously, if you do not like their decision, there will be an appellate body who is going to review all the appeals from these dispute cases. So this is how WTO works, and this WTO will ensure that the rules are followed and all these disputes are resolved amicably. Okay, now see, we talked about WTO, but most important is the most favored nation principle of WTO. So one of the most important rules of WTO is this principle that every country needs to follow. Now, what does this rule specifically say? This rule says that a country must treat all WTO members equally in the trade. For example, if India lowers the tariff on US goods, so it's not like India will be doing this only with USA. India will have to lower its tariffs for all the other WTO countries. So if India does not do this, that you're just reducing tariff for America and not any other country, that means India is violating this most favored nation rule. Obviously, there are some exceptions, such as you can go for a free trade agreement. If you are having a free trade agreement with any other country, in that case, it is okay. You have reduced all the you have reduced the taxes for almost all the goods and services. So that's an exception which is allowed. But just for few sectors or few items, you cannot do this. Okay, and right now, this is where we are very much concerned. India-US BTA, which aims to lower tariffs on some specific products. It covers specific industries, and that's where the challenge comes up. So there is this legal challenge whether this is going to violate MFN rule, most favored nation rule of WTO. Because if India and US give each other special trade benefits and they're not expanding or extending those benefits to other countries of who are members of WTO, then other countries might feel that they are getting discriminated, right? And WTO allows special treatment under FTA. But right now we are not going for FTA, because when it is FTA, then substantially all trade is involved, all the goods and services are involved. We're not doing that. And WTO has one extra clause. We call it this developing nations clause, or we call it as a clause made specifically for developing countries. So what happens is that WTO allows developing countries to create some special trade agreements. Okay, that is allowed. But right now, if you see India, US who are trying to reduce tariffs on each other, even this rule will not apply. So overall, we can say that there will be some challenges that India and US both are going to face. Other members may go to WTO and say that this deal is completely discriminatory. They may raise a complaint against us. Or let's say there is a possibility that between US and India, if both of us are not agreeing on this agreement, then one of them can go to the dispute settlement body of WTO. Or in the third place, let's say if in case people are not liking what is happening, even others will go to WTO, and at last when such things are happening, your WTO as a body is at risk. If countries are not agreeing to the rules and norms of WTO, then how come WTO will remain relevant? Okay, so at last, what should be our way forward, or what should India specifically do to avoid these legal problems? See, even states usually prefer not to do something illegal. So India must ensure that this bilateral trade agreement BTA, it follows WTO rules. It is compliant with WTO rules. So what we can do is we can negotiate trade deal with USA. It should be a fair trade deal for us which benefits India, as well as we try to protect our domestic industry. Okay, we can do that thing. And this India-US BTA is going to be very important. We can't neglect that fact that to strengthen the economic ties among these two countries, it's going to be important. But India must ensure that it does not violate WTO rules. And if we structure it carefully, then we can say that this particular deal can help India grow in the global trade, okay, as well as remain WTO compliant. So this is a very good article related to WTO which we have covered till now. Okay. Now we'll move ahead with the next article. So this next article, looking for a potent cosmic particle accelerator, there's one near Earth. Okay, a bit technical article, but we'll try to simplify it. You can go through this previous year question asked in the year 2017. I'll give you 5 seconds. Please read this question. Done? So if you have read this question, you'll get an idea that UPSC sometimes gets into the part of physics, part of universe, part of particle physics, the gravitational force. All these dimensions are many a times focused in the preliminary examination. Okay. So right now we are discussing on the same aspect. Recently, a study was conducted. That study has made an exciting discovery about the space near Earth. So near the Earth, something interesting is happening and scientists are finding it interesting. So what scientists found? They found that whenever a solar wind hits the Earth's magnetic field, so although you might not be knowing these terms, but I'll explain you. Whenever a solar wind comes and hits the magnetic field of Earth, at that time it creates some kind of shock waves. So shock waves are created over here when it hits it. And these shock waves, they have the capability of accelerating electrons in this region. So the electrons which are there over here, they will get a lot of energy and they'll become very much fast. They will accelerate. They'll accelerate to nearly half of speed of light. So this is the recent discovery. But I know you're not understanding it. So to understand, let's go to the basic part. First, understand the basic stuffs. Then you will understand this news. First thing, what is plasma? Plasma is something interesting. You all must have studied about state of matter. So in basic studies, we say that everything is made up of matter and this matter exists in solid, liquid or gas form. So ice cube, it's a solid form. Same becomes water, liquid form. Same becomes vapor, that's a gaseous form, right? But there is also a fourth state of matter and that is called as plasma. And this plasma is very different. This plasma is very different from a regular gas. You see, if you heat a solid thing, if you take an ice cube, heat it, after some time it will become water, that is liquid. Solid becomes liquid when you heat it. When you heat the liquid, it becomes gas. But if you heat the gas, and that heating is beyond our imagination, we are heating it a lot. Okay, it's not like you're just increasing temperature by 30-40 degrees Celsius, a lot. Then that gas will get converted into a new state that is called as plasma state. And it is very different because in this plasma state, the particles which are there in this matter, they'll become charged. So there will be an electrical charge in the particles. There can be positive charge, negative charge, all this will be there and these particles will be moving very freely. Okay, so if you want to imagine what is plasma or how does it exactly look, look at sun. When you look at sun, if you see this image, the state of matter here is the plasma. So right now plasma is said to be one of the most common state of matter in the entire universe. So whether it is sun or other stars, they all are made up of plasma. Another example is lightning. If you have seen lightning, is it gas? No. Is it liquid? No. Is it solid? No. Lightning is a quick burst of plasma which comes to earth. Okay. Then there are other examples also like neon signs, plasma TV, if you have heard about it. So there we are using plasma. And if you look at the entire world, or what we call it as the interstellar part, there plasma is existing. And since this plasma contains charged particles, positively or negatively charged, it will react. It will react whenever there is any electrical field or magnetic field. Okay, this is very obvious, right? If something is charged, that will react with whenever something is electrical or magnetic. This we study in the physics. And this study is going to be highly important for us. So you should know what is plasma. At this condition, you understand what is plasma. Now, this plasma is continuously coming to earth. If you look at sun is a giant ball of plasma. A lot of plasma is present on sun, especially the outer part of sun. And this plasma is continuously coming to earth. So there is a long stream of these charged particles in the space which is coming. This stream of charged particles, or this stream of plasma, is called as solar wind. So simply, what is solar wind? It consists of these charged particles, electrons, protons, etc., etc. And continuously, sun is emitting this plasma over here. We call it, because it looks like a wind which is coming to earth, we call it solar wind. And it's a very, very fast kind of a thing. So this solar wind, it moves very fast, somewhere around 300 to 800 kilometers per second. I'm not saying per kilometer, per hour, it's per second. So simply you can say it can travel from sun to earth in just few days. It's very easy for it. And this solar wind plays an important role in earth's atmosphere, in the space weather, etc. So it is going to interact with the atmosphere of other planets, earth's atmosphere, Mars atmosphere, Venus atmosphere, etc. And if you have ever seen in movies, there are some specific lights called auroras, if you have ever read about it. So some beautiful lights you can observe in the sky in the night time, which are also called as northern lights. Those auroras are caused by these solar winds. Because of solar winds, you see such different kinds of lights. Okay. Now, when we look at this solar wind, right now, this solar wind is coming to Earth and it contains charged particles. So it is not a good thing. It is not a good thing for Earth. So we need something like a shield to protect our Earth. So here we have Earth. We need something to protect our Earth. And something is already present. That thing is called as Earth's magnetosphere. So Earth is protected from these solar winds by a particular field which we call as magnetic field. So Earth has some invisible kind of magnetic field. You will not see this with naked eyes, but it is present. And this surrounds the entire planet Earth. Okay, we call it magnetosphere. So simply, just like in a war, you get with some kind of shield to protect yourself. Similarly, this acts as a protective shield against these harmful particles which are coming from space. Okay, and how this magnetosphere protects? When solar wind reaches Earth, it is coming to the Earth. So this magnetosphere is going to block it. Just like a shield, it is going to block most of these particles. So this will prevent any kind of harmful radiation reaching to the surface of the Earth. It will not come. But some solar wind particles, they still manage to enter this magnetosphere. And this leads to all those phenomena like auroras. Those auroras which you observe, those are because some particles still manage to get through these magnetosphere. Okay. And at the front side of the Earth's magnetosphere, where a solar wind collides with Earth's magnetic field, that area, there we see shock waves. This is the recent study or recent discovery made by scientists. Okay, so the NASA scientists, they used 3 special missions to study this particular phenomena. So these missions include MMS, Themis, Artemis, etc. All these missions are there. And through these missions, what we got to know is there are some kind of shock waves which are generated. So by analyzing data from all these missions, scientists discovered this part that whenever you look at electrons which are near to the earth, and there this solar wind is coming, those shock waves, they were gaining massive amount of energy. Some of the electrons over here, they were moving at a speed which is somewhere around half of the speed of light. So this we call as particle acceleration. Particles are there, just like electron is a particle which is getting accelerated. Its speed is increasing a lot because it's gaining a lot of energy. Now, how do electrons get accelerated in this space? So if you look at space, electrons, they do not move fast on their own. They require some energy. Something has to push them to higher speeds. And what scientists found out that there are 3 ways this can happen. One is called as magnetic reconnection. So sometimes magnetic field, those magnetic field lines which you saw, they break apart and then reconnect in a new way, just like a rubber band. You stretch it, and if you release it, it will get back to its original state. So it had that energy to get back. Similarly, magnetic field lines, they break apart and then they reconnect in a new way. And when this happens, it releases a lot of or huge amount of energy. And because of this, when this energy is coming, those electrons are becoming very powerful. They're moving very fast. This is acceleration. So this process, whatever I told you right now, this occurs in the sun's atmosphere, because of which we see solar wind, solar flares, etc., Earth's magnetosphere, etc. And by studying this magnetic reconnection, scientists can understand how electrons are gaining speed. Then there is this second method, shock wave acceleration. This is something which we have studied right now. So when this solar wind is coming, shock waves are getting created, and these shock waves, they are pushing electrons. They require some energy. They are pushing electrons, and that's why they are getting lot of energy and they are getting speeded up. Okay, and they are reaching to somewhere around half of speed of light. That's a very high speed. And the third method is wave particle interaction. We call it swing effect also. A good way to understand this process is by thinking about a child on a swing. So let's say if you push the child at just the right time, they will swing higher and higher. So in this space, similar thing happens. Electrons are acting like a child on that swing part, and the electromagnetic waves, they act like that push. So when electrons and waves both interact, electrons or the particles and the waves, when both of them interact exactly at the right moment, these waves give these electrons some boost of energy. Some kind of energy will be given to these electron particles, and over time these small boosts will add up and make these electrons very, very fast. Okay, I hope you have got the decent understanding of how particles are accelerated. You should know about this plasma part, solar wind part, and how these things happen, and this magnetosphere. This is very important. Clear? And this discovery is going to be very important for scientists to study the space weather forecasting, to study the cosmic radiation, to develop any future space technology and go ahead with the research. Okay, so this is going to be highly, highly important. Now, let's move to the next part. That is the third article of the day, which is related to the arms import by India. Now, this is an important article. This is a report given by SIPRI. So, the SIPRI as an organization is also very important. Now, you can read this previous year question related to the foreign direct investment in defense sector. Please read, I'll give you 5 seconds. Okay, so if you have gone through the question, you can get an idea that there will be questions on defense sector, or the defense sector can be combined with the economy part, and there will be questions. Now, right now, we're talking about a report given by Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Now, this is a very important body, and this body every year comes up with a report, or they will go ahead with the report for last 4 or 5 years, where they'll talk about arms trade that is taking place in the entire world. So, military equipments that are being sold by one country to the other, who is importing more, who is exporting more, what is happening, all that data will be provided. So right now, the report of 2024, that is between 2020 to 2024, in this time frame, the report claims that number one country for largest arms import is Ukraine, obviously because Ukraine is at war with Russia. But at the second number, the country who is buying a lot of arms is India. So this is very interesting news for us. Now see, if you read the entire report, you'll get a lot of information, but you should know some brief or some important parts, like who is the world's largest importer. We said it's Ukraine, and then it is India. Now India's import, if you see the trend, it has got declined somewhere around by 9.3% in this time period, 1519 to 2024. So we have seen some decline, but still we are at second number. Then major suppliers of India, number one is Russia. After Russia, we have other countries like France, America, Israel, etc. And if you see the trend of supply which is coming especially from the Western countries, so France is at the top. 33% of our arms are coming from France. Then comes Israel, USA, etc. Then if we talk about the diversification part, see, India is trying to diversify. Earlier, India was very much dependent on Russia for all these arms. Now what India is doing, India is trying to diversify its imports. So we'll buy something from Russia, we'll buy something from USA, something from France. So this is how we are diversifying, so that we are not dependent on one country. As well as what we are trying is to become self-reliant, Atmanirbhar. We are also trying to produce many arms on our own in India. Okay, so this part India is working on. Now, if we talk about India's neighborhood, what about Pakistan? So, if you see, whatever Pakistan is importing, most of that stuff is coming from China. So, China is supplying 81% of its total import. Can you imagine? 81%. So, right now, Pakistan is completely dependent on China for arms import, we can say. Then, the next part, global arms import. So, we already said Ukraine is at top. After Ukraine, it is India, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and then Pakistan, who are the top importers in the entire world. Then as far as regional part is concerned, then Asia and Oceania, these two regions are at the top when it comes to importing arms. See, this shows that these countries are very much insecure. There might be some war taking place, or they are concerned that there can be a war, because of which they are importing so much. So 33% of global import is in this area. Then Europe 28%, Middle East 27%. Now moving ahead, who are the major exporters? Till now we talked about importers. In exporters, we have USA at number one. So USA exports 43% of the world's entire arms. That's why we say if there is war going on in the world, there is a possibility it's because of USA, and USA will be very happy with it because they are going to export arms. After USA, it is France at 9.6%, then Russia 7.8%. So these are the major exporters, we can say. And interestingly, in recent times, USA's export of these arms has increased by 21%, and Russia's exports have fell down by 64% because Russia is at war. Okay, then France became the second largest exporter for India, specifically India also. France is very major player, and in the world also France has become second most exporter of arms. Okay, The same graph is shown over here in this diagram. You can see this. Now we want to know what is this SIPRI. I said SIPRI's report is very authentic, but who is SIPRI? So SIPRI was established in the year 1966 by Swedish Parliament. They said that we are going to develop a body, establish a body which will be doing research and analysis for the peace in the world. To bring peace, we'll talk about the arms trade that is happening and how we can reduce that. So this was brought by Swedish Parliament. Please remember this part. So its headquarters is at Stockholm, Sweden. Now the funding that comes to this particular body is from lot of stakeholders. So governments will be paying something, some private sectors will contribute, project based support will also be provided, etc. And they have this publication of SIPRI yearbook, which is very comprehensive. Okay, so this was our third article. Now the fourth article of the day, which is related to Lalit Modi. So Lalit Modi, he went to Vanuatu, paid them some amount of money and took the citizenship of Vanuatu. And then he thought that I don't need India's citizenship. Obviously, India doesn't have that dual citizenship. But now his citizenship at this country called Vanuatu, it is being revoked. It is being cancelled. Okay, so we are interested in knowing about Vanuatu. Before that, please read this particular question asked in the year 2015. Again, I'll give you 5 seconds. Please read. So I hope you have read this question. So let's move ahead. What is exactly happening? I told you the issue. So first we'll understand what is this Vanuatu, where is it located? So if you see over here, we have Australia. Beside Australia, we have New Zealand in this area, and here you will see Vanuatu as a country. So Australia, New Zealand, and in the north part of New Zealand and northeast part of Australia, you will see a very small country called Vanuatu. It's very small. How much small? Well, we can compare it with Andaman and Nicobar. So Andaman and Nicobar, just imagine the size of Andaman Nicobar Islands into 1.5. So whatever size you can imagine, that is the size of Vanuatu Islands. Okay, so its location South Pacific Ocean and 1750 kilometers east of Australia. Now if you see, it's a chain of islands. We call it archipelago. So it includes total 83 islands, and all these islands are volcanic islands, most of them. There is mountainous region, volcanic islands are there, and not on every island people are living. Rather, out of 83, only 65 islands are inhabited by people, because at others the region is not good for sustenance for people to live. Okay, now there is one important news we every time get related to Vanuatu, that it's a country which is at the highest risk when it comes to climate change, the rising sea level. See, it is at the height of somewhere around 300 meters from the sea level. So if the sea level rises, then Vanuatu will be the first country which is going to get submerged underwater. So from the climate vulnerability perspective, this country is at a very higher risk. Now, if we talk about its economy, well, it is dependent on foreign aid and climate finance. They export coconut, kava, cocoa. They focus on the tourism part also. And as far as India-Vanuatu ties are concerned, we help Vanuatu through this Forum for India-Pacific Islands Cooperation. Now, some facts specifically for prelims. Its capital is Port Vila. Its largest island is Espiritu Santo. You can look at this total land area which I compared with Andaman and Nicobar. Its population is somewhere around 3 lakh, less than half the population of Noida. Languages spoken over here: Bislama, English, French. 99% are Ni Vanuatu ethnicity people, and the religious composition, 93% of them are Christians. Okay. Now, one interesting thing about this Vanuatu island is this country is sometimes called as tax heaven. See, if you go to this country, they'll say that we do not have any income tax, we do not have any wealth tax, we do not have any capital gains tax, any inheritance tax, etc. etc. So many businessmen who want to go for any money laundering or they want to reduce their taxes, they want to build their shell companies, they will go and they will prefer countries like Vanuatu. And you see, 30% of their revenue is coming from a special scheme that they are running. We call this scheme as Citizenship by Investment Program, CBI program. What is this program? They simply say that if you want citizenship of Vanuatu, just come here, pay some amount, and within 30 to 60 days, you're going to get the citizenship. In India, it doesn't happen. You have to live in India for 5 years, 10 years, or whatever number. There are some rules, there are some procedures you have to follow. After that, we'll give you citizenship. But here, you can easily get that. The amount is somewhere around 1 CR in rupees. If you have to calculate, it's somewhere around 1.18 to 1.35 crores. You don't need to go and live there for 1 month also. Just pay this money and within 30 to 60 days you will get the citizenship. Okay, you'll get that passport of Vanuatu country. And right now what has happened recently, when Lalit Modi, he took the citizenship, he paid that amount, he took the citizenship, but because there is a lot of pressure, international pressure, somewhere Vanuatu felt that their image is getting deteriorated, their reputation is at risk considering this red notice request from India's side through Interpol. So considering all these angles, they now said that we are going to cancel out the passport or the citizenship we have given to Lalit Modi, and that's why it is in news. Okay, so this is all about this article. Now, the fifth article of the day is this one, dangers of delimitation. We had already covered this article in our 5th March daily news analysis, delimitation in detail. We have discussed it in depth. So those who want to watch it, in the comment box, in the description, you will get the link to directly reach out to this particular video. Similarly, this article, the 6th article, flawed food regulations fuel the obesity crisis. So this talks about the obesity burden, and we had covered this over here on 4th March daily news analysis. So same links will be provided, you can reach out to this video. Okay, now the time comes for practice questions. So mains practice question: discuss the WTO implications of the proposed India-US bilateral trade agreement with a focus on most favored nation rule. How can India balance compliance with WTO rules while protecting its trade interests? So the focus is on this MFN and focus is on India-US bilateral trade agreement. So you can give a contextual beginning or contextual introduction wherein you introduce with this bilateral trade agreement and this WTO's most favored nation principle. Okay, later on you have to mention about this principle in detail in this particular answer. Your body part would include WTO implications of India-US bilateral trade agreement. So you'll say that there is possibility of violation of MFN principle. Then you can discuss about FTA versus BTA under WTO rules, what WTO rules specifically say, and potential legal challenge that may come up, potential discriminatory appeals, or countries might feel it is discriminatory and they can go for appeal. So those angles you can discuss. Then you can discuss India's strategy to ensure WTO compliance and protect trade interests. So this is the way forward that we have discussed. Same part you will be writing over here. And in the conclusion part, try to give a balanced answer. Don't say don't go for BTA, don't say this thing. Neither you should say that don't think about WTO rules. You have to balance both the things. Okay. Then prelims practice questions. So, double taxation avoidance agreement between India and Mauritius. So, please read this question. You can pause the video and read. I'll tell you the answers. Here in these three statements, if you read the third statement, after the amendment, Mauritius lost its status as preferred investment route for Indian businesses. Now, this is an extreme statement and this never happened. Mauritius is still important. Many businesses still go to Mauritius. So, third statement is wrong. By elimination, you can go to this first answer, that is 1 and 2. This one, next question. Again, you can pause, read and attempt the question. So, in this, both the statements are right. Tiger reserves are notified by state government. That's true. On the advice of National Tiger Conservation Authority. That's true. No issues. Approval of this board is necessary to alter the boundaries of tiger reserve. That is also true. So both 1 and 2 right answer. Factual question. Then Semicon India program. Please again pause the video and try to attempt. So here, if I read the fourth statement. The scheme provides direct subsidies to semiconductor consumers to promote domestic adoption of chips. See, this scheme, Semicon India program, whatever we have done, this is for the producers, this is for the manufacturers, and this is not for consumers. And here consumers is mentioned. So this statement is wrong. So answer is A, 1, 2, 3. All these statements 1, 2, 3 are correct. Okay, now questions from today's articles, answers will be provided to you tomorrow, but please attempt those questions. So you'll get the link in the description box, in the comment box. Just go through that link and attempt these questions. Okay, so this is an homework for you. First, related to this SIPRI finding, India is the world's largest arms importer, followed by China. Then United States remains India's largest supplier of arms exporter, followed by Russia. Okay, next question, with reference to Vanuatu. It does not impose personal income tax, wealth tax, capital gains tax, making it tax haven. And their scheme, the CBI program, grants citizenship in exchange for investment, and it still allows visa-free access to UK and EU nations. And the third question is related to solar wind. It consists of mainly of charged particles like electrons and protons. It originates from sun's corona. It remains confined to solar system and does not affect interstellar space. And it is responsible for phenomena like auroras and geomagnetic storms. So these are the questions for today's articles. Please attempt them. We'll get the answers in the next session of daily news analysis. Thank you so much for joining. We'll meet in the next session.